All right, so why don't we get started? So we already 7 minutes in. Welcome everyone. My name is Anton Madley. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Peak Financing, as well as the co-chapter leader for MFM Dallas, together with Ronnie Phillip and John Montero. John fortunately cannot make it tonight because they have a presentation for another two property portfolio that they are launching. So good luck to them. Ben and Ferris are also not joining because they are traveling to do inspections on a number of properties that Disrupt is buying right now. So everyone is very busy, but we obviously are grateful for everyone joining us. So again, that's me. Why don't you introduce yourself, Ronnie?
Thanks, Anton. I'm Ronnie Phillip with the Kingly Group. We're a real estate private equity firm based in Dallas, Texas. We focus on Class A and Class B multifamily across the Sun Belt region. We've bought and sold 572 units, and really excited about today and hearing what Kathy has to say about the changing tides. So I'm going to leave my contact information in the chat below, so feel free to reach out. I have my email in there as well as all the links to reach me. And one thing y'all can do is there's the 3 dots in the bottom. You can click save the chat, so that way you can save everyone's information. So our co-hosts are in here. So Ben and Ferris with Disrupt Equity, they're also co-hosts of this virtual meetup, as well as John Montero, and they'll probably drop their info in there as well. So I'll give it back to Anton.
Yeah, so you're breaking up a little bit, Ronnie, just in case. Yes, so Tarek is on too. Why don't you say quickly hi?
Hey everyone, I am Tarek, head of investor relations with Disrupt Equity. As Anton's kind of alluded to, we've got a lot going on. A couple of deals, I think 6 currently in the pipeline, even right now, that we've actually bought. So a lot of work going on nationwide. We are based out of Houston, Texas, but we purchased throughout the whole south and southeastern part of the country, the Sun Belt region, if you will. We take care of new developments, redevelopments, conversions from office into multifamily, as well as existing value add properties, but we focus exclusively on multifamily. We also have our own in-house property management company. So between our ownership, we have 3,000 plus units, and we manage 8,000 plus across our properties and our partners.
Yeah, thanks, Tarek. Why don't we say hi to Powell too, since he is a fellow Californian together with Kathy. Hi, Powell.
Hey guys, sorry, I was like literally got like French fries shoving in my mouth as Anton's like, hey, how you guys doing? But yes, I appreciate it. I'm Alchi. I'm out of here in Los Angeles. I'm driving right now, so kind of like got a bunch of different things going on. But happy to be here. Very excited to hear what Kathy has to say. Kathy's been a supporter of Multifamily Masters for a number of years. She's come to our events that we've had in Los Angeles and spoke for us. So really appreciate Kathy joining as well.
Thanks, Powell. All right, so now we finally can hear from the person everyone is joining us, the reason why everyone is joining us tonight. Kathy Fettke, welcome. It's really a pleasure having you with us. You are, I do not want to mess up the introduction, so why don't you introduce yourself with all the glory.
All the glory. Well, thank you so much for having me here. I am the founder and co-CEO of RealWealth, and I've just been kind of obsessed with forecasting because I learned it I learned some of the basics in 2005 when I was starting the RealWealth show, and I had Robert Kiyosaki on, who could just see so clearly what was coming when nobody else could. You know, I mean, the headlines were wrong, and you know, I think the chief economist for NAR, National Association of Realtors came out with a book in 2006 saying, something to the effect, oh my gosh, I can't remember the title, but it was like, this housing boom is going to last for the rest of the decade. And it was just so many experts were wrong. And yet real investors like Kiyosaki could see what was happening. And I just thought, well, how did he know? And he fortunately explained it on the RealWealth show that, what metrics to look for. So I'll be sharing some of those things, but as a result of that kind of information, I was able to, sell California property and buy in Texas at the time and sort of bypass that storm, at least with those properties. We ended up buying in other areas that didn't fare as well and kept some of the California ones, but everyone that I advised to do the same and sell their properties in California and buy in Texas did really well during one of the worst housing crashes in history. So forecasting, I'm passionate about, and I'm always looking for what are the things that investors should be aware of.
Yeah, very good. Right. So one of the advantages was Texas wasn't booming back then as much as California and Nevada and Arizona did. So there was not much to drop there, right?
Well, the thing is, people thought I was crazy. People there's really, and maybe they're right, but they just couldn't understand why you would leave a booming market for a boring one. No offense to Texas, but it was then. The values didn't go up, the cash flow was just okay. But it was what was coming, and it obviously jobs, population growth, and home prices were still really affordable, and housing was really affordable. So there was an upside. You couldn't go much further down, right? With all that growth.
That's right. Yeah. And as always, right, when it's booming, no one wants to believe that it could come to a halt, right? Yeah. You mentioned very few people touched on it and forecasted a downturn. Ivy Selman is one of the few that was willing to step out, and obviously she got a lot of heat from everyone in 2005 and 6 until she was right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I think you have a couple of slides.
I do have more than a couple.
Okay, good.
It looks like I can't share my screen, so someone will have to.
Yes. So let
me that. There. Okay. Can you see it?
Yep, we see it.
Okay, I'm going to push play and it might make things weird, but you can still see it?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. So the changing tides of 2022, for those of you who know, I really love the ocean and I love to surf and paddleboard and now e-foil and all kinds of things. But so I like to use this metaphor and you'll see why. And then of course, here's my disclaimer, my legal disclaimer that my attorney gave me. Don't sue me because these are just my ideas. Do your own due diligence. There. How's that? All right. So
that's the shortest disclaimer I've ever had.
There you go. So whenever you go out surfing, you got to check the tides. I've mentioned this in past webinars that no water sports person would go out without doing this, because you got to know if the water's going in or going out. It's going to make a difference. There's been times that I would go surfing when the tide was coming in and I didn't get out in time and the beach was gone. I had a really hard time getting in because when the tide's so high, the beach is gone where I surf. So, you should be aware of that. And the same when the tide's going out, you don't want to be like jumping on a wave to hit a rock because you forgot that the tide was going down and, the rocks are exposed. So it's just a metaphor that, most water people will always check the tides because it's going to really affect your ride. And it's the same with money. You've got to really understand the flow of money. It's very similar. When we talk about the money supply, there's not a fixed currency. That's just not the case. It flows. The money supply is measured by the currency that's in circulation, and the money supply can increase, and generally that leads to inflation. It can decrease if the money supply decreases. That tends to be deflationary. A country's central bank regulates this flow, and they do that generally by raising or lowering interest rates. So if you just, again, simple, and I'm sure most of you know this, and forgive me if I'm really overly simplifying this, but I just want to emphasize the importance of understanding how it changes everything when interest rates go up or down. So of course we know that they're going up, right? We need to be very aware of how that's going to translate into the joy of our business. So of course, if interest rates go up, money becomes more expensive. And the idea is to price people out. So there's a lot of headlines of people whining about not being able to afford stuff, but it's quite intentional. There's nothing surprising about it. That's what the central bank is doing. The Federal Reserve is trying to price people out. That's exactly what they're doing. And that is to be deflationary, to basically bring prices down, to slow down inflation. So again, don't be shocked by headlines. This is the plan. It's very clear. Just like when interest rates were lower right after the COVID, when nobody could work and everything was shut down. Well, we needed that kind of stimulus to make money really cheap to get things going. So the opposite is happening. That's why the tides are changing. And just like in surfing, it's kind of a weird moment when the tides are changing, when it goes from a outgoing tide to an ingoing tide. It's like not my favorite time to be surfing because there's confusion in the waters. And that's kind of where we are right now. It's some confusion as things are changing so dramatically. And here's a picture of the money supply. This is insane. This is unprecedented. This is a changing of the tides that we've never seen. We've never been here. So for anyone to predict how this is going to play out, you're just guessing because we've never done this. This slide is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. $20 trillion in circulation, right? And I look at just what happened in 2 years. Unbelievable, to go from 4 to $21 trillion in a 2-year time period. And people are wondering why there's inflation when we know that increasing the money supply generally creates inflation. It's like, why would anybody be taken off guard by this? This was absolutely to be expected. Even though this is very unprecedented, you kind of know if you're going to put that much money in to the economy, there's going to be an impact. And the best way to describe it is if you're playing Monopoly and you've got certain assets on the board, you've got the little apartments, you've got the little houses, and you've got the box of money, and everybody's playing. And then all of a sudden they bring in a couple more boxes of money and spread it out. Well, now you've got more money to bid things up because at the end of the day, the assets haven't changed. It's the same number of assets. There's just more dollars chasing it, which means people can afford to pay more if they want it. And that's the situation that we're in today. There's so much money. There's so much money out there circulating, and it's driving prices up. So like I said, we're in uncharted territory. In some ways, it's kind of scary to have that much currency just be able to be printed completely out of our control. I don't think anybody here had anything to do with this or wanted this or voted for this, but it's where we are. And it's like I say, when I see people kind of complaining on Facebook, it's like, I don't make the rules, but I know how to play the game. You got to know how to play the game because we don't make the rules, right? So we got to figure out what they're doing and learn their rules and play. So the game we're playing today is how to figure out this 2022 puzzle of crazy. So what we see is unemployment has basically bounced back. It's incredible, but not that incredible when you've thrown that much money into the market. I should certainly hope this would be a result, and it is. So unemployment rate is very low. Jobs are back. In fact, if anything, we have too many jobs. Again, a example of throwing so much money into the market that people could borrow. They could start businesses. We had a record number of businesses that were started. People could. Everyone's hiring, right? We're hiring. We're hiring a manager for our property teams and a syndication manager, an asset manager, and an acquisition. Like in every business, if you're in business, you're probably hiring. So we've got too many jobs and not enough people who want them, which means that wages go up. You got to pay more for people, and that creates inflation. That adds to inflation. So obviously, the story is inflation is up. In my opinion, it has everything to do with monetary policy. If we did not have this kind of monetary policy, we'd be in a difficult place right now, right? I don't think any country would have shut down if they couldn't just create money to solve that problem of no one producing and no one working. But all right, so as a result, we've got food prices going up as well, because at the same time that all this money was dumped into the economy, people weren't working, they weren't producing, they weren't making things. So now they're trying to get these factories up and running again, and it's not that easy. It's taking time, and therefore, trying to get the supplies you need, it's expensive, and that's adding to the inflation. Energy costs, all of a sudden a war breaks out in the midst of all of this changing of the tides. And of course, we're seeing energy prices go up, in addition to a horrible humanitarian crisis and another situation where we're wondering if somebody's going to blow the world up. So, lots going on out there, far more important than ROI, in my opinion. But again, we can't control it. We're just sort of along for the ride, I guess. I'd like to be able to control it. All right, home prices up. So here we are, single family home prices show double-digit increases in 70% of 185 metros. So it's really just across the country. There's very few metros that have not lifted from all this money circulating, all at the same time when people learned how to work from anywhere. And so many companies, RealWealth has been a remote company for 12 years because we wanted to live in Southern California. We had an office in Northern California. So we're like, hey, we're going to figure this out. And we've been doing it for 12 years and would never go back to paying for an office when we don't have to. And when we can hire talent from anywhere, so a lot of companies learned that over the last couple of years that, oh my gosh, we have a much broader pool of people to choose from because we can hire anyone, anywhere, not every company, but a lot of them. So of course, that's driving up home prices in places where people always maybe wanted to live, but couldn't, and now can. And Austin, top of the list, 39% growth in Austin in 1 year. This is like going back to 2004 when we were seeing these kind of price growth numbers. Like it's wild. It's a wild ride out there. It's one thing I heard Chris Martenson of Peak Prosperity kind of put it in a really interesting way that if you're driving and you speed up really fast or you brake really fast, it can be very dangerous. It's the speed at which things change that shake things up the most. Like if you're going from 60 miles an hour to zero all quickly, that's dangerous and you can get hurt. Or if you, go from 0 to 60, which really fast, I know some of you do, that can be dangerous too. If you do it real slow, you barely notice it, right? But that's not what's happening. It's happening right now. It's going fast. These changes are fast and it's shocking the market. It's shocking people. Hopefully things will settle, but right now there's a lot of shock in the market. Rent growth, just insane. If you own rental property, you've made money, most likely because rents have gone up dramatically. Over 25% in Phoenix, again, incredible. I don't know about you guys, but I've never seen numbers like this. I did not buy enough apartments in the last 2 years, last 10 years. Over 30% in Florida. Look at these markets in Florida. Now we did buy and help a lot of people buy property in Florida. So I think we did okay here. In these markets. Look at that. West Palm Beach. Are you kidding me? Look at that. Rent growth. Amazing. So multifamily rent growth, this is from Marcus and Millichap, based on markets. Again, percent change. It is the speed of change that shocks markets. Phoenix is pretty well shocked at 38% change. Tampa, 37%. West Palm, 36%. It's just across the board. It's just across the board, across the country. Major shock to the average person. Again, if you own real estate, you've made money. If you're on a fixed income or you're a teacher or a fire, or, police officer or a daycare worker, this is not good. This is terrible. This is very, very difficult for families, for people just trying to get by that were already having a hard time. There's going to be consequences for this kind of change for people who, are on fixed incomes. Will it change? Is there hope? When you look at this lot supply chart, it doesn't look like it, does it? New subdivisions down, not looking great. New listings down. You can see in this, the orange line is 2021. That's the number of active listings. It's, it's just a third of what it was, a fourth of what it was just in the last few years. There's just nothing out there. No supply. Why? Very little supply at a time when there's so much money circulating. That's a problem. That's a big problem when you've got, what was it, from 4 trillion to $22 trillion in 2 years circulating, and not the inventory to support it, not the supply of things to support it. Lots of money chasing a limited number of things. You know what that creates? Inflation. We have 1 million homes that are needed at a minimum to just be at a healthier market. And can we bring on new supply? I don't know about you guys, but we're in the subdivision industry also in our syndications. In our regular business, we help investors buy 1 to 4 unit properties in a broker to broker kind of situation, but we also syndicate and build subdivisions. And look at that last one on their garage doors. Almost 40% of builders can't get garage doors, and you can't close on a home without a garage door. Although we have negotiated with cities saying, look, these people need to move in. Can we just close on this house without the garage door? Is there anything we can do? So we've again, not been in a situation where you can't get the things you need to build a house at a time when it's so desperately needed. And I know you're experiencing this in your renovations and your ground up developments out there. It's interesting times. If you're a national builder, not so bad. You probably have better access to supply, but if you're a smaller builder like we are, it's been really hard. So will these supply chain shortages end? Who knows? Doesn't look like it's going to be solved anytime soon. So again, all of this, massive amounts of money out there chasing a limited number of goods and assets at a time when the demand is so enormously high for housing. This little area here, the orange is or whatever that color is, the tangerine is millennials. And the biggest number of millennials, they are between 29 and 33. What's that age group? That is the first-time home buyer age group. That's the household formation age. This is all these people looking for a place to live. They're having babies. They don't want roommates. All these people who said millennials were going to behave differently were just making stuff up and wrong. Millennials are people too. They're behaving like normal people. They just weren't going to buy homes and get married and have babies at age 21 like any generation before them. But now they're at the typical home buying and family creation age, and they're doing it. And they need a place to live. And you know what? These millennials are the most educated generation ever in history. They have access to more information than the president of the United States had when I was their age. Think about that. These millennials have grown up with technology. They know how to use it, and they can live anywhere. They're the ones who can live anywhere. It's not the baby boomers who can work remotely so much. It's the millennials. So, this is an interesting dynamic when all these things converged at once with massive demand of people who are well paid, well educated, and just went through a pandemic and maybe don't find living downtown so as exciting as it used to be. Maybe they want a yard for the dog and a place for the kids to run around so that they're not stuck inside an apartment if there's another shutdown with their family. All right. So US, again, all converged where US apartment vacancy rates are so low, lowest ever, 2.4%. Again, I've never seen this. I've never seen this before. Again, all this happens at a time when we've got sanctions against Russia and Ukraine, just the whole energy crisis here and the food crisis that we're facing. So, we're going to see this inflationary problem. It's just, again, amazing that it's all converged at the same time. It almost feels like it was planned. Some people here might think it was. I sometimes wonder, whatever it is, we've got to deal with it. So how do you slow inflation? Well, the Fed raises rates to basically kill demand. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to try to stop it by making things less affordable. By raising rates, fewer people will be able to buy a home, and that will hopefully slow down some of this, but it's not going to slow down the demand for housing or for rentals. Just more people aren't going to be able to buy a home, which you know what that means, more renters, right? And already rents gone up so much. So that's why I was just visiting Phoenix and I was driving around and looking at all these little old motels that have been turned into multifamily. You know, that's, again, I don't remember a time when that happened, but that's what's happening. Past rate hikes. What we've seen in the past is that the Fed doesn't usually get it right. They, you know, it would be really cool if we had a driver that could just speed up ever so slowly and slow down ever so slowly, so you're not jerked around. But you know, it's not generally. This looks more like we've been jerked around when you look at this. This basically the federal fund rate and the recessions in between are the lines. The vertical lines are recessions. So when the Fed raises rates, you can see that rates are going up, 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 and then boom, a recession, and then up, 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 and then boom, a recession. So it's not like they've always timed it well, where there's no recession. So, you know, a lot of people are saying, yeah, we're probably in one right now. We just had a negative GDP the first quarter. You know, we might be in one, but that doesn't necessarily mean a deep, dark one like we've seen in the past. It just means that GDP is going to slow down. And again, that's the plan. So don't be shocked by it. The Federal Reserve is trying to slow things down by tightening. They're doing not quantitative easing, quantitative tightening. They're tightening, raising rates to slow things down. That probably means recession. Doesn't mean what we saw necessarily in 2008 or during COVID, but probably means we're going to see some form of recession, and we don't necessarily have to freak out. But if you remember, the last time we were here at this interest rate was in December of 2018. It does affect people like me in the home building business because new homes do get hit hard, harder when interest rates go up. It sort of slows down demand because new homes are more expensive. So when rates go up, fewer people can afford them. So I'm bracing for it because we are just trying to wrap up these new home subdivisions that we're building. And it's been a tough ride. You know, we've had the shutdowns from COVID. One person on the site got sick, everybody had to leave for 2 weeks. And it's, you know, it's been challenging. And then when you get everybody back on the site, oh, guess what? The materials aren't there. They're not off the shipping container. So, and of course, price fluctuation is almost impossible to bid out anything these days. So anyway, bracing for it. Anyone in new construction or in renovation, which I think you all are, it's you know what I'm talking about. But the last time we definitely saw a pretty serious slowdown when rates got to this level. But again, this is the plan. The plan is to slow things down, and we're going to see that. It just feels shocking, like I said, because it's happening so fast. Here's just the Fed fund rate. It's one thing to just do it steady. It's another to do it all at once. I didn't think they would do that, but that is what seems to be happening. So, as I said, we're already seeing it. GDP was down in Q1 of this year, contracted at 1.4%. So like I said, a negative 1.4%. We do that again this quarter and we're in a recession. Again, doesn't mean we have to panic. There's a lot of people here who have done amazing during recessions, right? You can still have, and oftentimes it doesn't even affect real estate. So it may affect the stock market and other things, but no need to panic, although sometimes it feels like that. But the situation, again, is a little bit different because the federal debt is now over $30 trillion. Again, this is unprecedented territory. We, at least in my lifetime, never been here, never been in a country with so much money circulating and so much debt. It's kind of like you would hope that if we have that much debt, we've got a whole lot to show for it. But, do we? We know we need new infrastructure and, we want to bring jobs back to the US, but I don't know where all this money went, but I don't know if it went to, certainly didn't seem to go to our GDP. So we've got just enormous debt. If the Fed raises rates too high, we're not going to be able to pay this debt. So we're kind of in a situation where I don't think we have to worry too much about the Fed raising those overnight lending rates too fast, because we'll default on the debt. And, unless they're trying to bring America down, they're not going to do that. So what are they going to do? And again, here's on the Hill, basically, can our country afford higher interest rates? And the answer is no. So what are we doing? Well, printing money printing to the rescue. Modern monetary theory. This is the buzzword. This is what you're going to hear. This is how the game is being played right now. It's the buzziest economic idea in decades, which got a pandemic tryout. Now inflation is testing its limits. So that's kind of an article from the New York Times. But basically, this is where we are. It's what Japan's been doing. It's just printing money. That's the economy that we're in. It's called the modern monetary theory. Look for it. This is it. This slide shows you we haven't done this. This is not really something you would tell your kids to do, with your finances. Just borrow a bunch of money and print a bunch of money. And it's not generally, the finances you teach people, but it's where we are. And it's a result of kind of having the Federal Reserve work with politicians and be able to 1971 coming off the gold standard so that our currency didn't have to be tied to anything. And you can see it just untethered, and wow, really untethered in the last 2 years. So what we know is that ever since 1971, when we came off the gold standard and our money did not have to be tied to anything, inflation was the result of money printing. But that was, again, I'll go back to the last slide. Inflation was a result of the kind of money printing you saw over the years, which wasn't so bad. I have no idea what's going to be the result of all of this, but we can probably say inflation. So, is it a perfect storm for real estate? Some people are saying yes. So if you look at headlines, this is where people are putting their money in real estate, and because it's an inflation hedge, right? The word is out that real estate is a safe haven in this storm. So it might just be a perfect storm, especially when you look at, we're a global economy. So when you still look at commercial real estate yields, they're the highest out there compared to just about anything else that people are investing in. So commercial real estate in the US, it's hot, hot, hot. Worldwide investors are coming here. So I'm sorry to break it to you, but competition's not going to slow down. All right. So again, like I said, the shock from the speed of change, 30-year fixed rate mortgage, it's just a shock. And people are adjusting to it, but we haven't been here. We haven't been here for a while, and people are going to have to get used to it. My parents were investing in the 80s when not really, but a little bit. And at least on their homes, they were paying, double-digit interest rates. When I started, my dad was so excited to get get to 9%, refi into 9%. When I got started, it was 7 or 8%. So to me, 5% is still good, but again, it's going to take some time for the world to get used to that. But again, historically speaking, they're still pretty darn good. And if you look here, it wasn't that long ago we were here. So if it keeps going up, well, that would be a little bit concerning, but my prediction would be it's not going to go over 6%. And if it does, it'll just flirt with it. I don't think it'll go over 7%, simply for the reasons that I said, because the intention of the Fed is to slow things down. And when things slow down, rates will not go up, in my opinion. So how do you navigate these changing tides? If you're going to go out in this water, it's going to be a little bit of a rough ride. It's usually not a smooth transition, and that's just important to understand, but we will adjust. So I just wanted to kind of give my little background story of how we navigated some rough storms in the past. Rich and I, like I said, I was interviewing Robert Kiyosaki in 2005, and he was really, really clear about what was coming. It was just so obvious once he pointed it out. And I was in the mortgage industry, so I was like, okay, that makes sense. We knew that the loans we were giving out were were ridiculous. I came in the mortgage industry. I'm like, what is this? A NINA loan, a no income, no asset loan? I don't need any evidence that this person has any ability to pay this back. I don't need anything, verification of income or money, savings, nothing. Okay. Up to $5 million. Wow. Okay. Stated income, they can tell me. I don't need verification. It was, none of it made sense. So, but we knew when those loans would reset. It was very well documented. So the fact that people couldn't see it is really kind of amazing. But again, Kiyosaki could, and he knew that certain markets were going to implode because that easy lending drove prices up beyond affordability. And when the payments adjusted, no one would be able to afford it. It was very obvious. But he said in Texas, the lending laws were much stricter, and you couldn't do 100% cash out refi or 104% cash out refi in Texas. They weren't doing that. And the home prices didn't inflate, during a time when the whole country is inflating in prices. It wasn't so bad in Texas. In fact, in 2006, Rich and I we listened to Kiyosaki, and we bought this beautiful home in Rockwall, Texas for $140,000. So to me, that was like, well, that's not inflated. It was about 27% undervalued based on the way that salaries were going up in Dallas because of the job growth and the population growth. So, it just made sense. They rented for $1,500 a month, cash flowed, so we bought like a bunch of them. When the recession hit, those homes stayed rented, rents went up, values went up. Like those properties didn't even know there was a recession. So that was amazing, right? But I as you'll read in my book, if you read it, Retire Rich with Rentals, we kept some properties that didn't fare so well. I gave my audience on the RealWealth show a lot of good advice, but I didn't listen to it. I told people, sell your California property and exchange it tax deferred to Texas to get out of the storm. But we kept $2 million houses in California that were worth about $500,000 a year later. Bought in Boise, Idaho, which is hot now, but back then there was only 2 major employers, so it was just didn't have the job diversity. I got into a bridge loan. We got a construction loan in Tennessee on 3 properties. I was meant to get a construction to perm, which means you just get one loan, and after you build it, it converts to a long-term loan. But no, I got a construction loan that ballooned after 1 year. And after the property was built, the market crashed and there was nobody that would refi out of that. So balloon notes are dangerous. Anyway, those Texas properties, that's what we learned. The cash flow is king. And those Texas properties just did amazing cash. But even in a time when, if there's a recession and people are losing jobs, you need cash reserves. You need 6 to 12 months set aside so that if somebody loses their job, that you're prepared and you're not taken aback. You're not like, oh my gosh, I've got a vacancy. It's just like, oh, well, I planned for that. So you want that 6 to 12 months reserves. Don't over leverage. Don't get into those balloon notes. That's where things can get tricky. If you need to sell for any reason, you don't want to be over leveraged, because we know how that works out. We know that financing can disappear if recessions get too bad. Banks fail and financing can disappear. So just again, the short-term notes are a little scary at times like this. Just be careful of those. I'm a little concerned about people with bridge loans right now, because they might be shocked to discover that their projections are not what they thought now that interest rates have gone up. And the right market matters. That's a big one. Being in a market that still makes sense, that isn't a balloon, where the average person can afford the average home. Of course, that's harder and harder to find, but there are markets out there where that's still true. So, I'm telling you this, that back in 2013, my background is in the news. I worked in CNN and Fox News and ABC7, all these different, I know what the news business is. And I learned early on that most reporters aren't specialists in the thing they're reporting on. I was given a Hillary Clinton's new healthcare bill, and I had 20 minutes to read it and report on it because it was breaking news, and how could I possibly? So, we have to be really careful about getting our information from the news. But even in this case, in 2013, when I was asked to debate Robert Schiller, here he is an expert, but he's more of a data guy. So he was looking at numbers from the past and how values had gone down. And his argument was it was a dangerous time to buy. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding? We've hit bottom. Cash flows are incredible. Rates are low. Cash flows are high. It's so much cheaper to own than rent. So this is the greatest transfer of wealth in history. By the end of the debate, he agreed with me. But even so, it's like it's confusing, and you got to be careful about getting your information from TV, which is why I, over the years, been absolutely obsessed with this, and have had the opportunity to give my opinion on the news. So again, every metro is different. Every metro has recovered differently from this. Austin, one of the reasons Austin's so hot is look at that high income percent recovered. This is the higher income people. And Austin has recovered the most. Then Dallas, Jacksonville, Tampa. These are areas that are booming because there's people with lots of money there. Lots of money, high income recovery. Let's see, U.S. apartment demand continues to soar. I'm showing these slides to just kind of maybe offer some calmness in the middle of the storm, that there's still great opportunity in our industry. U.S. apartment demand is intense. And at a time when there's just this, it's difficult to buy homes, and you have this huge generation that's looking for a place to live. So this isn't going away. This is a demand for apartments is, in my opinion, again, not going away. The affordability gap between home payment and average rent is widening. Again, fewer people can afford to buy because home prices are so high, and with rates going up, that brings more people into the rental market. National employment rank by metric. It's a percent change. Again, Austin at the top, Salt Lake. Salt Lake actually had more jobs during the pandemic than before the pandemic. So really strong city, still pretty affordable in my opinion. That's why we have a development in Park City, because it's just a really, really strong market. But you can see a whole lot of strong markets there. Some of the weaker markets have been, some of these high tax states like Northern New Jersey, Los Angeles, Cleveland, Washington, Oakland, Orange County. These are areas where, people have had to live because that's where the jobs were, New York, San Francisco. But when all of a sudden you don't have to work there, you can live anywhere. You can leave New York City and go to Tampa. You're going to do that. If you can leave San Francisco and go to Salt Lake or Phoenix, you're going to do that. You get more for your money. So again, and less taxes. So that's what we're seeing. Consumer strength. You could see, again, if you're feeling a little bit scared, just remember this, that retail sales are up. That's because people have the highest savings rate that they've had in a long time, and they're ready to go spend some money. And that's part of why we're seeing, inflation, because people are out there ready to go. They're flying and they're traveling and they're just getting back to life. So savings is, look at that amount of savings and a money markets. People are well heeled. People getting loans today have high FICOs, high savings, high jobs. There's plenty of people still who can afford the high prices that we're seeing in real estate. So I just wanted to, again, share, there's people who think that there's going to be a housing crash. Very, very unlikely. Very, very, very unlikely. Because people who own homes today are locked into, in some cases, 2% interest rates. They have enormous amounts of equity. They have low payments. Why would they ever be foreclosed on? If they were running into financial trouble, they put their house on the market and it would sell in a minute. But why would they? They'd have to go rent something much, much more expensive than what they own. They're just not going to do it. They're locked into these low payments. Is there going to be more inventory coming on? I don't know. Would you leave your 2% interest rate, or would you just stay in your house and renovate? That's what a lot of people are doing. So I definitely don't see a housing crash. If anything, I think the biggest crash in real estate is the lack of supply. and that's not changing for the reasons I just stated, and that more and more people are coming from all over the world to invest in US real estate, yet we can't build it fast enough. So I think we're I'm just going to wrap this up saying, I think we're in the right industry. I think we're lucky. We've been doing this a long time, and we have the head, we've got the connections, and we've got the heads up basically over other investors. So, congratulations to us for hanging in here. And I think there's more good to come. So, but most important anyway, even if it all fell apart, if you've invested in what really matters, like your health, your education, and your community, your network, your family, it doesn't matter if it all falls apart, because you can start over again, and what you have, what matters most is still there. So, all right, wrapping up. I guess I could stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much, Kathy, for your presentation and your insight. Obviously, it's a very difficult topic to discuss. You have various opinions, right? It's one way or another. Very few are somewhere down the middle. One point I wanted to bring up. But by the way, anyone who has a question, please post them in the chat so that we can get back to you. We certainly want that you have a chance to ask Kathy your questions. Also, you can raise your hand. You are unlike most of us who are more on the multifamily side, where everything is a little bit slower, right? Where even when you're a developer, it takes a long time. Whereas when you are on the single family side, you see the impact much quicker when you have new homes that are going onto market, and interest rates, the 30-year mortgage you mentioned, shot up. We were at below 3%, and now we are above 5%. Have you seen that impact in your single family developments with your buyers, or not really?
Not yet. No, not yet. It's simply, like I said, a lack of supply issue in the markets that we chose, where our developments are in Reno, Nevada. So you've got all these people from San Francisco who can be in San Francisco in 4 hours if they need to. They can get there or fly in a 45-minute flight, but they can live in Reno and not pay all the California tax. So, the markets we chose are good. We were the only major builder in Bozeman, Montana, and we started out trying to build affordable housing around 400,000. It's like 800,000 now, and it's still cheap there. That's still it's amazing. You know what? Our profits are down, even though the home price doubled. So when people say that developers are evil and greedy, it's like we're just trying to get it done. With all the costs that have gone up, we're still not making more money. Yeah. So no, we haven't seen it yet. But in multifamily, we've only done a few multifamily deals, and I really, oh my goodness, wish I'd done more. Obviously, I think most people wish they'd done more. And I wish all of the people on here that I know had talked me into it sooner. But I do worry that some people just didn't pro forma the higher interest rates, and I think there's going to be some trouble ahead. But we'll see. That's an opportunity for other multifamily investors, but it's concerning. So hopefully people have a workaround if they're in a bridge loan and they're trying to get financing now.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to Bozeman, right, it's amazing that you actually have inventory that's less than $1 million. So you're
right.
in a pretty good
spot. So we're still like super affordable there, but we had 90 people on the wait list. So sure, did 20 people fall off? Yeah, but
sure.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about the bridge loans, right, this obviously all the loans that we have been doing over the last 2 years on the acquisition side were all bridge loans except a handful, right? So, and it's not just us. We see it. We talk to all the lenders we work with. We talk to various brokers across the country where we arrange financing for these deals. Everyone has the same message, at least in the major markets. 90% of all deals are all done with bridge financing. And that is definitely a concern.
I didn't know that. 90%.
Yes. So
wow.
It's, depending on the market, it's 80 to 90%, but it's only in the craziest markets like Austin, like Phoenix, like Tampa, Orlando, it's 90%. And I think there is a place for bridge loans. My concern is more with the ones that went with maximum leverage at 80%. And we are tracking all these loans that we arranged, and now look at, could they actually refinance into a fixed rate agency loan, which is now at 4.6, 4.7 in the best case. And with the year 3 NOI, and very few of them actually will pencil out, right? Because the lenders were so aggressive, right?
Yeah.
So clearly there is a massive demand for multifamily, but I certainly share your concern there that people were willing to go in with these bridge loans and willing to pay more than what the property really would accommodate, right? So my view, right, and maybe you can give a comment where you share with this, but my view is if I can get 75% around of an agency loan for a property, then it's properly priced, right? Because then it's priced based on cash flow, not on future cash flow. But right now, most agency loans, if you buy a new property, it will be around 50%, 55% leverage, sometimes even less. So clearly that is a problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, there's just so much money worldwide coming in that, you know, some of these buyers might not even need loans, right? It'll be interesting to see. But for the smaller groups and, you know, the smaller syndicators, it's going to be really hard to find something that pencils, which is why we haven't done any deals. Yeah. I think, again, if you sold over the last year, then, or even now, that's it, you definitely want to be a seller in this market. But I don't know. That's a challenge. That's a challenge that I don't know how to solve, but I do believe there will probably that opens up opportunity. I think there'll be some defaults.
Yeah. Definitely.
Kathy, I had a question actually for you're very involved on the single family side. What's your thoughts on institutional investors buying up single family homes? You see groups like Blackstone, BlackRock, Rockpoint, Bridge Investment Group. Everyone's raising billions of dollars to buy single family homes to rent, either through the build to rent strategy, through like large communities, or just aggregating single family. What's your thoughts on that?
You know, I hear so many people, it depends on the market for sure. The institutional, they're such a tiny percentage of the number of homes that exchange. You know, it's still, I think the highest number of investor purchases were really kind of in 2012. So it's not a new story. Like they came in and it was upsetting. I had friends, I was like, please just buy something because it's so low. It's never going to be this low and this great of an opportunity. And they went out and listened to me and they kept getting outbid because really there was, it was like 28% of the activity was investor and the hedge funds. Then it got down to like 22%. And now it's back up to like 23%. So it's nothing unusual, the amount of investor activity. It just probably feels that way if you're bidding because there's nothing out there, right? But most of what trades is not going to the institutions. It's still lower, but it's frustrating at a time when, you know, people are having a hard enough time trying to just get a home to live in. I know California is looking at different laws to allow the primary, you know, homeowner to have first dibs on it. And, you know, who knows if that'll pass, but we haven't personally been affected by it because we tend to be outside of what they're doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one thing for people to note is these institutions are buying single family homes and they're never selling. Their cost of capital is better than anyone's, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's something I've noticed, and I think that's a really good opportunity right now to aggregate single family portfolios.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We have a single family fund and we're probably starting another one. As much as I think multifamily is way sexier, it's just, it's just the business I know.
Do you have any concern about affordability? Obviously, we have an affordability issue for home purchases, right? Because the DTI just doesn't pencil out. Have you seen similar issues with your rental properties, single family rental properties? Or are you concerned that with all these rent increases that you have to cut back on your qualifications just to be able to fill the homes?
Well, we are focused on Florida, and you have people coming from New York and New Jersey who think it's still really cheap. Even if it went up 40%, even if it doubled, it's still cheap for them. So it's a different dynamic. It's a different demographic and migration that we just haven't seen at this pace. So when you've got this many people leaving the high priced markets, looking elsewhere, everything looks cheap to them, even when prices are up. I mean, I have friends that just moved from Seattle to Austin and they bought a $1.5 million house and it's cheap to them.
Yeah, that's interesting that they still found something for 1.5.
Right. Right.
I mean, Austin is like crazy, right?
Yeah.
Everyone from the tech environment in California is moving to Austin, and obviously there, and Seattle too. Their pockets are so full with cash. It's
yeah. I mean, so it leaves a very weird situation and uncomfortable for the Fed, which really created this problem to begin with. So, it's confusing why, but they're going to try to kill that demand, and that's like, when are they going to stop raising? And then they can't, right? Because of the debt situation. So, their job is to really kill this demand somehow and create job losses and create the opposite of what we're seeing. And, how are they going to do it? They're doing, like I said, bigger interest rate hikes than we've seen in a long time, which is a shock to the market. But how far can they go? So if they can't raise rates very high, then it's what I said, more of what caused the problem to begin with, which is money creation. So the more that they're going to just print money to solve problems, the more the problems exist. But for those who own assets, there's a benefit. For those who don't, it's just going to get harder. So that's why I'm preaching for 10 years now. Just buy your first home, just buy it. So you just are locked in, got a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I don't care what it takes to have 4 roommates, but just try to acquire assets, because life is just going to get harder that way. The divide is going to get greater.
Mm-hmm. Tony Castronovo, he made, it's not a question, more a comment, right? Like many multifamily buyers, it's getting more challenging to get deals to pencil out. Surprise, surprise, with interest rates soaring, but yet sellers are still expecting prices that made sense 6 months ago. So thoughts on what lag there might be before the sellers getting back to reality?
Well, I'm just curious, are they getting the price they're asking? Because it might not make sense to you because you're a smart investor, but that's the same thing. Like, I would look at these institutionals, like, they're buying that house for that price. That's not going to cash flow. That makes no sense. I'd never buy that, but they did, because they could see that in the future, it will pencil. Rents will go up over time, and they have more money. They don't look for the same things that people here are looking for. So I'm just curious if, even though it makes no sense to you, if it's still selling at that price. That's what I'd want to see, because we're not really seeing I just interviewed John Chang on the RealWealth show. That'll be definitely tune into that, because he's the he's the top economist guy over at Marcus and Millichap, and he's like, we're not seeing a slowdown.
So when was that? Just
interviewed him this week, so it should be on next week.
Okay, so that's interesting, because we see already quite a number of deals where they trade below the whisper price, where the brokers are coming back with prices where people are able to get into best and final, where before, let's say until a month ago, you had to be above the whisper price in all major markets to even make it into the best and finals. Now we have seen a number of deals where we are actually below the whisper price and we still make it into the best and finals. So I think it all depends on, obviously, on the market and on the asset class.
Yes.
But there is only a slowdown, and I think some sellers at least recognize it. I know a number of brokers, including one broker in Austin, that called every single seller with whom they had BOVs out over the last 3 months and told them, look, I think we need to readjust what we told you, what we are able to sell it for, right? So there is only, I would say, a recognition that cap rates are so low, while interest rates are, like the 10-year Treasury is now getting very close, or is meeting the cap rate for a Class A multifamily, right?
Yeah.
So there clearly something needs to give, and I think some players only will recognize it, but it will take time, right? Particularly multifamily, it's just it moves very slow, and we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, again, the intention of the Federal Reserve is to slow things down and create deflation. And it's really important that people understand that. They're fighting inflation by trying to create deflation and bring prices down. So that's not surprising. Because when the Fed wants something, they usually get it.
Ronnie, did you see any other questions or comments in the chat I missed?
Yeah, I'm just looking through it. Could Kathy bring up her slides regarding the city growth in Florida?
I can just send you my
against one-off?
slides if you want.
Yeah, that's probably the best.
Okay.
That we distribute the slides, right? So everyone.
Yeah, we can distribute it. So for anyone that wants the slides. But Kathy, this is really insightful.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
So I don't think any of your slides had your contact details on it. So maybe you just can let us know now, and maybe also put them in your chat.
Okay. Yeah. You can find me at realwealth.com, and then the Real Wealth Show podcast, Real Estate News podcast, and now I'm on Bigger Pockets on the Market. That's my newest podcast. I'm one of the hosts there, and that's been a lot of fun.
Okay.
And then I have a book called Retire Rich with Rentals on Amazon, but I'm updating that. It's outdated, so don't get that. I'm revising it.
So when do you think the revised version comes out?
2 years ago. No, I'm working on it. I'm hoping in a couple of months, maybe a month.
Okay. Yeah. So everyone be on the lookout for it. Right. So I think your husband also wrote a book, right?
Yes, he just came out with a book called The Wise Investor. It's a parable. Yeah. It's just he wanted to really touch people deeply, and he thought telling a story would do that. So it's really fun. It's like spending like it's like being coached by Rich Fettke, when you read it, and a lot of it is hanging off a cliff somewhere, because that's how he does things. So it's fun. It's a great book, The Wise Investor.
Yeah, that's very good. And you had some people that did also write a foreword there, right? So
yeah, Kiyosaki wrote the foreword.
Right? Not every book gets that.
Yeah, Rich is welcome.
And McElroy too, right?
And McElroy, we had some really, really wonderful people promoting it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it for you to join us tonight, Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Insight. It's always a pleasure. And so now we will do a breakout session. So we have, let's see, probably around 5 or 7 breakout rooms. So Kathy, if you still want to hang around.
I actually have to go.
That's fine.
Okay, I've got a guest here, actually the storage people. So
All right.
Barton.
Very good.
Barton Real Estate. Yeah. All right. Well, take
Excellent.
care. Thank you,
very much,
everyone.
Kathy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. So we now set up a breakout rooms. We will be there maybe for 10, 15 minutes or so. So let's do that now.